Hey everyone, welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour daily fantasy preview for DraftKings and Kountermove UFC 185. American Airlines Arena, Dallas, Texas, in studio with me to break down the card. Well, you'll be breaking down the card. I'm just going to be partially reading off people's names. Not so correctly.
I hear you're batting about a 50%.
I actually have the official stats here. So through 3 shows so far, my mispronunciation guide now says I've mispronounced 17 of 37 names, which is a 46% clip. At least I'm good with numbers.
Yeah, that's why you're the stats guy.
So I will be providing the biggest gaps in value between DraftKings and Kountermove and where we can find each one. If you had played with us last time and you entered our Kountermove team, you probably won a lot of money.
It was a good team.
You used our DraftKings team, you didn't win.
Hit or miss.
Yeah, listen, we're testing this out. So
it's all a theory, right? We just got to figure it out for sure.
Yeah, listen, you had some pretty good picks last time, and you tried to talk me out of DeLima, although you had him in your lineup. And had I have done that, I would have won big bucks.
I know. You said so yourself. I don't want the same team. I said, go Tim Means. He had to use the highest point getter.
So that would have turned out well. Let's see if we can find some more. So the big thing you have to remember on Kountermove and DraftKings, early finishes are key. Yes. You can find people who finish early or cheaper players that stick around for a while, pile up significant strikes. That's where you're going to make your money. So let's get to the card to begin with. And I think I'm going to add a beeper, too, when I mispronounce names. Oof. So you need to help me out here. You have to tell me when it's wrong.
Should I ding you?
You should ding me. I'll add in the ding after. We should probably get a bell or something like that.
I know. I feel like there's one kicking around here somewhere.
You know what? I'll get a Family Feud buzzer sound effect and be like, and we'll be good to go. All right, first match up of the night. First fight. Anthony Pettis versus, oh boy, I'm going to say Rafael dos Santos.
You know what? You had it until you decided to go full Spanish on the last name.
How can you go Spanish for the first name and not go Spanish for the last name?
Well, the first name could be Rafael or Rafael. I'm sure he'll give you both ways.
Well, he's Brazilian.
Dos Anjos.
I'm guessing he's Brazilian. There's a lot of these Brazilian fighters.
Correct.
So how's the last name? It's not. I mean, the J should be pronounced like an H, but it's not, is it?
Well, I go with Dos Anjos, right?
Okay.
But if you were to say Dos Anjos, I suppose it's correct as well. But when you try to give it that spicy Rafael, I think you went Dos Anjos. maybe a tad off.
Well, maybe if I actually pronounce the letters of the word.
I feel like I want to buzz you, but I feel like, in Family Feud when it's like judges and they're like, give it to him.
Oh, I'm going to get that one person. He's taking on Anthony Pettis. I think I got that one down pretty well. All right, so we're looking at Anthony Pettis, the second most expensive player on DraftKings, coming in at $12,200, $5,800 on Kountermove. That's it's expensive. Yes. And I've been hearing maybe I don't want to take him.
One thing is that he's in a 5-round fight. So those 2 additional rounds that allow you to score points is big. So in terms of a player that's going to cost much, Anthony Pettis should cost a lot because he's in that 5-rounder. But you would assume he's going to blow out RDA Rafael dos Anjos. I don't see that happening.
See, I don't see that happening either. I may have some inside sources on this one telling me that, Dos Anjos is the guy you want to take here.
Well, the current UFC bantamweight champion, TJ Dillashaw, Fight Network recently caught up with him in Montreal, and he was saying, listen, I've trained with this guy at Kings MMA in California, and he's extremely good. He's picking him. There's been a number of other high-profile UFC fighters also picking Rafael dos Anjos to win straight up. In terms of this, when I looked at it, I got him on my DraftKings team for $7,600.
That's the thing.
He was the cheapest player. It seemed like, okay, one, he's also got 5 rounds to work with here. And if he scores a couple takedowns, scores a couple strikes, do I think he beats Anthony Pettis? It might be a bit of a far stretch. What people are saying is that he has a chance. Certainly the betting line at -350, -400 for Anthony Pettis, ridiculous. And in terms of this value, still ridiculous for Anthony Pettis. But the value is on the underdog, being Rafael dos Anjos, who probably will score some points. So definitely worth the look on him.
Yeah, where he's so undervalued on DraftKings, like he's $4,700 on Kountermove. That's probably a bit too much. Because there are other guys that are cheaper that seem to have a better chance of winning, at least based on odds. But on DraftKings, like you said, the cheapest player on the board.
Shocked.
And you get 5 rounds out of him. Why not? Do you think it goes 5 rounds? I guess is the question.
He's been finished in the past, so I suppose that there's the blueprint is there for beating him. And Anthony Pettis is known as a finisher. But he's not exactly, he can finish you early, but I think this one maybe goes 3, potentially 4 rounds. I actually don't see it going the distance. If it goes the distance, Rafael dos Anjos is probably the favorite to win that. But if it's going to finish inside the distance, Anthony Pettis. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, do I want him then inside the distance? It's just a little too risky. And for that value, there's certainly better picks on the card.
All right, let's move to the next fight. I'm guessing this is a women's fight since there's someone named Joanna whose last name can go one of 2 ways. It's a Polish last name. So I'm either looking at Joanna Jezerczyk or I'm looking at Joanna Ajerchuk.
A J-check.
A J-check. I'm getting close.
Yeah, well,
not even close.
A lot of people call her the real Double J because they just don't.
Hey, she's not Jeff Jarrett, all right? I guess the real Double J was Road Dogg when it all broke down to it.
There's actually been a number of real Double J's out there. I actually really like her. I'm claiming she could potentially be the first Polish-born fighter to win UFC gold, so that's certainly a big prop up to her. But she's also dealing with the 5 rounds because it's a title fight, so that's something to factor in. She was actually relatively cheap as well, and I totally picked her.
Yeah, $9,000 on DraftKings. She's undervalued compared to her price on Countermove, where she comes in at $4,700. I think it's. I don't know.
I went with DraftKings. I didn't put her on my Countermove team. I thought
you found better values in Countermove?
Yeah, because it's all about. When you look at it, as you mentioned at the top of the show, you're looking for people that are going to get finishes. And 2 of the people that I immediately pegged as these people are going to get finishes are not even available on the DraftKings.
Yeah,
because they don't do the Fight Pass prelim. So
there are 2 fights that aren't available.
Exactly, and those are 2 fights that I really like and actually put on my Countermove team. So, I mean, there's different ways to play and different ways to build your team. And in terms of this, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's a volume puncher. She lands a lot. Takedown defense is actually good enough. She probably will get taken down, but she always gets back up. And the fact that it's a 5-round fight, 25 minutes, she could land as much as 100 significant strikes, getting a half a point per significant strikes, plus that takedown defense, plus the possibility of maybe she drops her at any point like that. I don't necessarily see her getting the finish, but the sheer volume makes it worth it for me anyways.
She comes in as an underdog, but only plus 135, so the book is saying this is a relatively even fight, yet the DraftKings and Countermove numbers don't necessarily reflect that. More on Countermove than they did on DraftKings, so I mean, I guess if we start off with the 2 5-round underdogs as a base of our DraftKings, we can shoot for the stars with these other guys. We can really pile up on big price performers. So let's go to the 2 fights that are actually on the Countermove card from the Fight Pass that aren't on DraftKings. One's Jake Lindsay and Joseph Duffy. You think this one's going to be over quickly?
Yeah. By the first or second round, and Joe Duffy should take out Jake Lindsay. Lindsay is 0-2 in his respective UFC career. He's been finished both times in the second round, both times by submission. Joseph Duffy's making his UFC debut, but he's highly touted because he beat Conor McGregor, who's that super big Irish prospect, as well as another fighter by the name of Norman Park, who's also actually from Northern Ireland, so a couple Irish fighters.
How come they don't make them fight each other? I mean, Northern Ireland and Ireland are not the same.
No, I know. Well, actually,
it's
with
a
Joe
Protestant
Duffy,
Catholic mix.
Joe Duffy's 155 pounds, Conor McGregor 145 pounds, but McGregor already mentioned, hey, this is the last guy to beat me. Maybe down the road, wouldn't mind fighting him again. He's known for 2 things over in Ireland. He's got a sweet submission game, but after he lost his first MMA fight, he decided, I don't really want to do this grappling anymore, switched to pro boxing, went 7-0 as a pro boxer, and now seeing that the money's back with the MMA game and that he's got a lucrative opportunity because of the whole McGregor situation, he's back. I like him. Haven't seen him fight in the UFC yet, but I'm putting my chips behind him and going all in on him, and I think Duffy gets the finish.
How much do you think that people look into these Fight Pass fights? I mean, you break all this stuff down, you see everyone fight. Do you think that people see these names on the Countermove card and be like, I don't really know who these people are, and therefore I'm going to pass them over for a big name? Like, there's only one real name. I mean, there's 2 guys on this card that I recognize right away. One of them's Alistair Overeem, just because he fought Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
That's the only reason I know who he is. He's facing Roy Nelson, who we've talked about in the past.
Yes.
So, I mean, in that fight, $8,400 for DraftKings for Roy Nelson. Can he win? Because, I mean, honest to God, like, Alistair Overeem looks like the biggest steroid guy of all time.
And Roy Nelson looks like the one guy who you know is not on steroids. So, a bit of a different ends of the spectrum. Roy Nelson is extremely good value because for $8,400, this fight is going to end by knockout. You have to assume someone's getting knocked out. And Roy Nelson is known for just one thing.
Knocking people out?
He just throws the right hand. If he hits you, you're going down. Alistair Overeem has more knockout losses on his record than any other fighter active on the UFC roster. I believe he's been knocked out 11 or 12 times. That is significant. He's been getting knocked out since 2004. Well over 10 years this guy's been getting knocked out.
Well, I mean,
so it's not crazy to think that if he gets hit, he gets knocked out. I don't think Roy's going to win this fight strictly because the fact that we've mentioned he's not a PED user. He's 37. He's grossly out of shape. He looked very flat his last time out. And where a lot of fighters, they look flat their last time out, the next time out, they're on better juice. He's not on anything. I have to assume he's going to be the same version that we saw his last time out, which is not very good. But for the value, definitely worth a look.
Worth a look. So, I mean, would you prefer Roy Nelson to, let's say, that crazy chick's name whose name I can't pronounce? Double J, we'll call her.
I actually like Joanna just because, like I said, the volume punching. If Roy,
can we just call her Joanna?
We can call her Joanna.
That works much easier for me.
I don't know. I believe you have an ex-girlfriend named Joanna, so maybe it'll bother you.
Different spelling.
Different spelling. That makes the world of difference.
She was Johanna.
Oh, she was Johanna. My mistake.
There you go.
You're looking for a finish. Like you said, the highest way to score points is with that finish. So with Roy Nelson, if I was to take a coin right now and put Roy Nelson on one side, Alistair Overeem on this side, and flip that coin, that's what's going to happen.
Okay,
so you're really taking an actual gamble here. Joanna's a girl that I think win or lose is going to tally up points, and she's cheap enough that at 9,000 as opposed to 8,400 that it's worth that for me. So I would say Joanna's the better pick from my team, but the people that have Roy Nelson, if that coin lands heads and he knocks Alistair Overeem's head clean into the rafters, well, they're going to score big.
So I guess if you're going to play in one of these multi-entry events where you can submit just more than one lineup.
Roy's a definite guy you got to put on some of those teams.
Yeah, you might want him as a GPP play. Probably everyone sees the name, like someone like me, like Alistair Overeem. Like, oh, I know who that is. I'm going to take him now. I don't want to take him, but I feel like most people will. So yeah, that's a good contrarian play. Let's go back down to the Fight Pass card. Jermaine Durandine. Randamine. I thought it was like Ramdeen. Jermaine Ramdeen. That'd be a good alter ego.
The Iron Lady.
That'd be a good alter ego for John Ramdeen. Jermaine Ramdeen.
Yeah.
You can rap. Or sing R&B or something. I don't know. Versus Larissa Pacheco. Pacheco?
Out of Brazil.
See, I know someone named Pacheco, and that's how he pronounces it.
Really? Is it spelled like that?
Yeah, it's spelled exactly the same.
A silent C, I suppose?
He's from New York.
He's from New York. Where's he from? Is he Italian originally?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
But you know, I guess so.
I know a guy who knows a guy.
All right, so $4,600 for Jermaine.
Yeah.
Jermaine with a G. And then Larissa comes in at $5,000.
Yeah.
Do you have any feelings on this fight either way? I mean, they're very close in pricing. Obviously, Pacheco is the one who's favored here.
Yeah, Pacheco was born in 1994, and in September of 94.
She's younger than you.
She's 20 years old. At least I'm 23, right? She looked pretty bad her UFC debut, where she lost her first ever fight to Jessica Andrade. The issue here is that she's 20 years old, and she's still very green in the sport. When you look at Jermaine, who trains at a super camp at American Kickboxing Academy in California, she's 37-0 as a pro kickboxer. Then she was having trouble finding people to kickbox with her, so she was like, I'll just do this MMA thing. And she hasn't been as good in MMA. But she's 30 years old. Now she's going to take all of that skill, all that wealth of knowledge, all that. She's going to fight a 20-year-old. And I know there's some 20-year-olds in every sport that they exceed expectations and they're great. Larissa Pacheco's not one of them. She's going to get humbled badly. Ooh. Imagine yourself at 30 fighting yourself at 20. It would be a murder. Because you have all that time to expand. She's a striker with a sloppy ground game, and it's not going to work here. Not only do I think that Jermaine gets the win here, but she's underdog status if you want to bet it straight up. And for pretty cheap value at $4,600 on Kountermove, I put her on my team. And avoid Larissa Pacheco as well. For $5,000, it makes no sense.
I like that, $4,600. We're building value for our Kountermove team here, and then we can really spend. I'm curious to know which big-end guys that you do like, that you think that you need to get in your live. So let's go to our guy, Elias Theodorou.
Elias Theodorou. Avoid him at all costs.
Yeah, well, I've actually watched a few of his fights. It just seems like he lays on top of guys and grinds them out. There's not a whole lot of fantasy points there.
No, it's not. And he's not exactly, there's some guys, but they're such good wrestlers. They take you down, you get up. They take you down, you get up. And they just keep taking you down, you can score points that way. Elias is not that guy. He'll work very hard for that one takedown. And if he gets that one takedown, he will hold you down. And as you mentioned, not a great way of scoring points. The flip side to that, his opponent, Roger Narvaez, from Texas, that's probably not going to help him out all that much unless it goes to decision, which is something we don't really care about here.
Well, we do care about because we don't like things that go to decision. We want to see knockouts or submissions right away.
And this one, I believe, is going the distance. They're both kind of like-minded fighters. They're both wrestlers. They both have decent grappling pedigrees. Roger Narvaez has a better wrestling background, but Elias is kind of shown to have a little more speed, a little more grit, maybe a tad bit more grind. This is going to be a very close fight. I wouldn't bet this in terms of the actual betting line, and I wouldn't put either of these guys on my team in terms of either of this. If something was to happen and one guy gets flash knocked out in 20 seconds, oh, great, I was wrong. I just don't see it happening, and I'm going to avoid it.
That would be a low percentage outcome.
It's MMA.
Based on anything can happen, obviously, but when you assess this and from standing back, being like, well, what are the most likely forms of outcome, the range of outcomes you could have, knockout in 20 seconds is probably the lowest on that list.
Well, for DraftKings, you can kind of sort it by who are, they average out how many points you scored in the past, and then you kind of have an average of that. And Elias's average is like 75, so I would assume people just that sort through averages and kind of pick guys that way, they would pick a guy like Elias. And then at the end of the night, if he scores you 20, 25 points, you're going to be kicking yourself in the head, geez, you know what? He was actually kind of expensive. I didn't really get what I thought I was going to get out of him.
Kind of expensive. He's the fourth most expensive player on DraftKings, so we're going to avoid this fight altogether. Just leave it off our ticket.
No value either way, really.
Are you seeing anything that sticks out to you as a potential very quick knockout here?
I actually like Ross Pearson over Sam Stout. Sam Stout has a very good punch resistance. He can take a hell of a punch, but he's been in the UFC for 10 years now. He's certainly slowing down. I don't really know where his head's at, and he's coming off a brutal KO loss where he got completely knocked out. Ross Pearson also got knocked out in his last fight, so maybe there's going to be that little tendency to exchange, but I don't think so. I think Ross Pearson comes at him, I think finishes him maybe by midway through the second. I know he's a rather expensive player, but he's someone I loaded up on both on Kountermove and DraftKings for Ross Pearson.
He's the third most expensive player on DraftKings. However, he is undervalued on Kountermove, only at 5,100. So that's actually a nice steal to put in your lineup if you do want to have a bit of flexibility. Even if you, and here's the thing, you don't need to spend every dollar you have. Because everyone generally sees that. They say, oh, I'm on Kountermove. I have a $25,000 salary cap. I need to use every penny of that. But if you want to build a unique roster, leaving $300, $400 on the table isn't the craziest move if you want to excel in these huge field tournaments. If you're playing like a one-on-one or a 10-person tournament, then yeah, you want to use everything you have, put out the max lineup. But if you're going to play in an event where there's going to be common lineups everywhere that if you win, like 8,000 other people win, you might as well go a little bit unique. And I like that move at a guy that you think is very strong coming in at 5,100. On DraftKings, 11,700. It's going to take up a big chunk, but we've already saved money right off the hop. So we can afford these guys. So I like that a lot. How about the most expensive player on the board? Oh boy, Henry Cejudo. So this one's pronounced with an H. The other one's not pronounced with an H.
It's one of those situations where if you were to call him Henry Cejudo, people would give you the pass. But
I'm giving myself a pass. I'm giving myself a check.
I'm going to give you a ding on that one.
Damn it.
But I guess we can replay.
No, you're the official judge of the mispronunciation guides.
Yeah, this is an Olympic hero, buddy. He won a gold medalist in freestyle
in
wrestling.
judo?
No, in wrestling.
In judo?
He's the youngest American to ever win gold medal in freestyle wrestling. So he should be, by all means, the man. Then what happens is he signs a pro contract with Legacy Fighting Championship out of Texas, and he has a whack load of problems. He can't make the weight properly. He no-shows. He keeps getting ill before the weigh-ins. Not a good look for him. The UFC decides, you know what? Let's just sign the guy. He's an Olympic gold medalist. They sign him. He's supposed to make his UFC debut. He gets ill cutting the weight. So they tell him, you know what? You can't make 125 pounds. We're forcing you to go to 135 pounds. Goes to 135. Smashes the guy, Dustin Kimura. Smashes him. And then at the press conference, he goes, Dana, I'd really like to go back down to 125, and they're allowing him. So the fact is, I haven't seen him on the scale. That's very worrisome for me. However, if I'm basing it on his skill set, how he matches up against Chris Carriasso, very much do I like this kid.
So what if he misses the weight? Like, is that a real possibility here?
Let's say he comes in at 127, 128 pounds. That's missed weight. The fight will still go on. Unless he comes in and he's sucked out and his face is drawn out and they have the towel for him and he's standing on there, then it's possible that they just yank him out completely. However, he's an Olympic gold medalist, and he's training at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado. He's been at the highest level. He should know how to cut the weight. I'm hoping he's taking it more seriously for himself, which I believe he is. He tweeted a picture about a week and a half ago of him standing on a scale, and the scale weighed 135 pounds, which means he's only got 9 more pounds to cut, and that's very easy. Most guys will come in 20 pounds overweight.
I wish I could cut 9 pounds just like that.
You actually could.
Yeah, but I gain it right back within like 30 seconds after drinking water.
But they do too. They just get on the scale, and then as soon as they're like 126, it's like, give me that water. Go. That's what you have to do. I mean, anybody could do it. It's not a real weight loss method.
For DraftKings purposes, is he deserving of being the most expensive player?
Yeah, I think so. He's got multiple ways to win this. Not only does he have that wrestling background, he can score with multiple takedowns. When he left wrestling eventually, he retired from wrestling, said, I don't really want to do this anymore. They have this like thing where you leave your wrestling boots in the middle of the mat and you leave, and that signifies I'm done. He did that and then said, I want to box, and picked up amateur boxing and looked good. And in his UFC debut, the fight that he did have, Dustin Kimura, his hands looked amazing. Dropped Dustin Kimura. If he's getting flash knockdowns, he's getting significant strikes. He's very fast. He has a great wrestling pedigree. He can take him down. He's going to stuff the few takedowns that Chris Carriasso fights. Those are all ways of scoring points. And he does have that possibility of maybe finishing him as well. So he, to me, is a high-scoring player. And because he's so expensive, I think other people are going to avoid him because they don't really know him. They haven't seen him make the weight. They're saying, who's his last fight? Dustin Kimura. I don't know that guy either. I think even though he's expensive, I don't think everybody's loading up on him. I am, actually.
Okay, so I'm going to get him on my DraftKings roster
And we have
as well.
some money, too, because we've been saving some money.
And we do. Yes. We can afford him without really... I mean, we like the underdogs that we have at their cheap price. So let's go to a fight that's Johny Hendricks versus Matt Brown. I hope it's not Fantasy Sports Network's Matt Brown, because I can't see him surviving against Johny Hendricks.
Yeah, you know what? I've actually met about half a dozen Matt Browns.
I think everyone knows a bunch of Matt Browns.
Knows some.
Who's going to win this? Because Johny Hendricks is super expensive.
He's super expensive, and for that reason, I actually went with Matt Brown on my DraftKings team.
$7,800.
$7,800. He was cheap, and if you've seen the way he fights, he's a punch output guy. He comes at you like a whirlwind, but he throws a lot of strikes, and he's very durable. So even if he loses this fight, and there's a possibility he loses this fight, he will likely go the 15 minutes, and he'll likely land a lot of strikes. For that reason, he's going to score, and because he's relatively still cheap here, I like him.
All right, so when we talked about this a bit earlier about building unique lineups, I'm looking at him on Kountermove, 4,300. Like, they're treating him like he's a scrub.
Yeah.
Is he a scrub?
No, by no means. He actually just went 5 rounds with the current UFC champion, Robbie Lawler, his last fight. So did Johny Hendricks for that matter.
Like, I know,
but they're in similar situations where they're both super durable. This is only a 15-minute fight, so it should bode well for them because they're used to fighting 25s. Matt Brown's a guy that his nickname's the Immortal for 2 reasons. He actually died of a heroin overdose when he was younger, and they brought him back to life, so that's why he's called the Immortal. But his fighting style is very much that. He'll go down. You'll hit him, he'll go down. And he gets right back up, pissed off. And he's a good person in terms of just scoring points.
How about him at plus 285 to be an outright winner here?
Yeah, I know. Actually, me and John Paul were talking about that it's more of a coin flip fight. And when you have a coin flip fight and one guy's a minus 350, you avoid that. Plus 285, certainly some value on Matt Brown.
Absolutely. I mean, is this a case of people just knowing who Johny Hendricks is? So
yeah, he's a former champ. He fought George St.
They'll
Pierre.
bet on them. They've seen his past fights. They recognize him. Therefore, they gravitate towards him even at this steep price.
Yeah, Johny Hendricks, I mean, he has the wrestling pedigree, and that's his best way to win. But people also know him for his punching power. And if he comes into this fight thinking, I want to get back to power punching Johny Hendricks as opposed to wrestling Johny Hendricks, it could be a very long or short night for him, depending. It bodes well for Matt Brown and his game plan, which is just chaos. That's how he fights. As soon as the bout starts, it's chaotic. And in both of these, types of games, when you're trying to get people that are going to score points, be it by strikes, be it by submission attempts, be it by takedown attempts, be it by all of that stuff, then Matt Brown's a guy definitely worth having a look on. I didn't put him on both of my teams as I did with Ross Pearson, as I did with Henry Cejudo. I didn't put him on both, but for the counter move, the fact that he came in... Sorry, for my DraftKings, the fact that he was $7,800 that bode well for my team.
It does, and it leaves you a bit of flexibility to maneuver around. Again, take these top-end guys. I think that's a strategy that people overlook, that if you take these underdogs, these super cheap players, you do want it to go the distance. I mean, you're not banking on them to win. You're just banking them to put up more points in their draft price point presents, basically. And it does allow you to take these high-end guys who you're pretty sure are going to get a very quick finish.
Well, the last event, I remember one of the people that we took was Raquel Pennington, and she was the cheapest player.
And she fared very well.
And that's what we said. We said, listen, she's not likely to beat Holly Holm, but she'll go the 15 minutes. She'll land enough strikes that even in defeat, for a cheap player, you got your value out of that.
Yeah, and the way you look at it is fantasy points per dollar, basically.
Yeah.
And she far outgained that. She had one of the best returns on investment for the DraftKings money spent and the counter move money spent on her. 2 fights very quickly to wrap this up. We have DARON CRUICKSHANK.
B'nai Dariush, but you got DARON CRUICKSHANK, yes.
Get it together with this spell. It's worse than one end Johny.
One end
Johnny.
Mark with a C.
Mark, dude, listen, never ever bet on Mark with a C. Soft. That's a very C is such a soft letter. It's unbelievable. Think about it. No, at the end of a name. Think about if you could. I mean,
my last name ends with a C.
Think about if your name was Cody Saftic, but it was Cody with a K and Saftic with a K.
I'd be probably pretty cool.
You'd probably also be from Norway or something like that too. But either way, you have Viking blood. You want to bet on that guy. C, he's French. Right. Just sorry. Unless you're Georges St. Pierre. Don't want to go with French guys. Anyway, any feelings on this fight?
This fight is a stay away just because DARON CRUICKSHANK's the favorite. If you actually want to bet it straight up at money line, B'nai Dariush, worth having a look. He could finish DARON CRUICKSHANK. He's got a sweet ground game and some much improved striking. The fact is, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. I'm not sure on any of these ones, but I always have a good idea in my head how it'll play out. And this one, I don't have a good idea how it's going to play out. Both guys are moderately priced, and I'm just going to avoid that one together. I feel I can make a better team with avoiding those ones. And now, one of them could finish the other one outright and win, but it'd be hard to guess that, and I don't think most people will.
Jared ROSHOLT versus Josh Copeland.
Jared ROSHOLT, I mean, I'd say he can't finish anything, but he's a heavyweight. I'm sure he's finished many of things, including Hungry Man dinners. But he's just a massive wrestler. He will take you down. He will get you down, and he won't do much once he gets there.
So it's kind of like Elias.
Yeah. But because he's a heavyweight, he's so big, it only really takes one takedown, and once he gets on top of you, that's it. His opponent, Josh Copeland, not really known for his wrestling, and coming in at 264 pounds, he's not exactly the best shape. In fact, his nickname is the Cuddly Bear, and he might be a tad too cuddly for my liking. He's just not exactly there. ROSHOLT should take him down, dominate him. I don't see a whole lot of points being scored there.
You don't think he finishes him quickly then? This could be like he grinds out 2 rounds.
It's going to be 15 minutes. 15 minutes of him taking Copeland down and just holding him down. I don't know. I just don't really see how that fits on my team here.
Would you bet the over of 2.5 rounds?
Yeah, for sure.
So you think this goes to decision?
Yeah, Josh ROSHOLT's a minus 300 in terms of the betting line, and then Josh ROSHOLT by decision, I would assume is going to come in at plus money because heavyweights by decision, people don't usually bet on that. It's heavyweights. The aura is, it only just takes one. This is MMA. Look at the size of that glove. It only takes one to begin with. This is a guy that, despite his size, doesn't really finish fights. And Copeland showed in his UFC debut that he can take a punch. So this one goes the distance. Not very good point scoring for both Kountermove and DraftKings. But if you want to bet some money on the straight line, then go with decision.
Cody Saftik, thank you for joining me on the Pat Mayo Hour UFC 185 DFS breakdown. We can watch you on the Bookie Beatdown all the time, you and Paul Shaughnessy.
Bookie Beatdown, break down the entire card, and yeah, obviously we do the money line if you want to bet that straight up. But hey, this is good too, and there's a lot of people that are getting into it, and I got to admit, it's super fun making these lines.
It is fun making the lineups. I don't even know who these people are. I'm just like, hey, this guy's price. I just like looking at the math of it. That's what I do.
But it's interesting, as you mentioned, you can kind of bring the stats to it, and I'm going to bring what I analyze through the fights, and between the two of us, it'd be interesting seeing how these teams score.
Yeah, listen, like we said, last time out at UFC 184, our Kountermove team was one of the highest scoring teams of anyone's. Our DraftKings team sucked. And we'll figure it out this time around.
We're gonna figure it out. It's a work in progress, trial and error.
You can follow Cody at CJ Saftik on Twitter and follow the Bookie Beatdown at Bookie_Beatdown. I'm Pat Mayo, and I'll see you next time.